Most attempts to understand God's relationship to time hit a wall almost immediately. If God exists completely outside of time, how can he genuinely act within it? But if he is subject to time, moving from moment to moment like us, how can he be the unchanging, eternal being described in the scriptures? These represent the two extreme positions where the conversation often gets stuck. One view holds that God is locked on the timeline, experiencing history as a sequence of past, present, and future just as we do. The other view places God entirely above the timeline, a distant observer with no real connection to the sequence of events. If we assume God is bound by time, the theological costs are high. If he is moving through the present alongside us, the future remains unwritten even for him. His foreknowledge becomes uncertain, and his promises are left contingent on how the temporal sequence eventually plays out. But if we place God completely outside time, we lose his engagement. A purely atemporal God cannot respond to a specific cry for help. Here, prayer becomes a theatrical exercise, and the biblical narrative of God intervening in history looks like a cosmic illusion. Because both extremes fail to account for the full biblical witness, we have to look for a third option, a way to hold the unchanging nature of the Creator together with his genuine involvement in our world. The foundation of this third option begins with the revelation of God's own name. When Moses asks for a name at the burning bush, the answer is a declaration of active existence. I am. The Hebrew construction in Exodus 3 emphasizes an ongoing, active present. It is not I was or I will be, but a constant declaration of being. It describes a life not measured by moments, but existing in a perpetual now. There is also the matter of the beginning. Genesis 1 and John 1 indicate that the entire spatio-temporal framework is a product of God's act. Time is not a container that God lives in. It is a creaturely reality that he brought into existence. This establishes an asymmetric relationship. Time depends entirely on God, but God's being is not conditioned by time. He is the source of the sequence, standing over it as its creator rather than a participant within it. Divine eternity is a mode where all of time is present to God at once. He is the foundational reality that grounds the timeline, surveying the entire stretch of history in the single eternal moment of his own life. Even while standing over time as its author, God is intimately involved with his creation. He delays judgment, walks with disciples, and responds to human intercession. This engagement reaches its peak in the Incarnation. In the person of Jesus, the eternal Son genuinely took on time. He lived through the sequence of human life, experiencing a Tuesday after a Monday, without ever ceasing to be the eternal God. The classical resolution lies in the two natures of Christ. In his divine nature, the Son remained the unchanging I am. Yet in his human nature, he entered our mode of being, walking through history moment by moment. The Incarnation demonstrates that God's eternal nature is not an indifference to time, but the very ground that allows him to enter it. The eternal and the temporal are not enemies. The temporal is the mode in which the eternal God engages his story. This classical view of eternity, where God transcends time while genuinely engaging it, reshapes the way we view our daily spiritual reality. Consider how this affects prayer. Because God surveys all of time at once, your petition and his response are not a sequence of before and after to him. The prayer is real, the response is real, and both are held in an eternal purpose that has always included your request. You are not trying to change a distant mind, but participating in an eternal relationship. This also anchors the promises of God. Because our salvation was rooted before the foundation of the world, it is not subject to the accidents of human history. The cross happened at a specific point in time, but it expresses a commitment that has always existed in the life of God. Even our view of death changes. From our perspective, death is a barrier that cuts us off from the future. But from God's perspective, the believer's life, their death, and their future resurrection are all held simultaneously in his care. It is the reality described in Psalm 90. From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. He exists before the mountains were brought forth, and he remains after the world passes away. Our brief and often anxious temporal lives are not lost in the passage of time. They are held within the larger, unbreakable reality of God's own eternity.